My joints kept cracking so loud in public, and one college visit finally made my parents panic. I used to think everyone's body cracked like mine. Ever since I was a kid, my joints made noise every time I moved. My wrists cracked when I wrote. My ankles popped on stairs. My neck clicked when I turned too fast. My knees snapped when I stood up. I didn't think it meant anything. I just assumed other people were quieter and I was the loud version. My friends laughed and said I sounded like bubble wrap. My dad called me his little Rice Krispie. My parents treated it like a weird family trait, so I did too. Then middle school hit, and it stopped being funny. If the room got quiet and I shifted in my chair, something would crack and half the class would look at me. When I raised my hand, my shoulder popped. When I stretched, my back snapped. During tests, it was the worst because everyone was silent and every tiny move sounded huge. One time my hip popped so loud 3 kids jumped and the teacher stopped walking to look at me. In assemblies, I would stay seated even when my row started moving because I knew the second I stood up, my knees would go off. I learned to grip my desk and rise slowly, hoping that helped. A few times kids turned around before I even moved because they knew the sound was coming. After that, I started planning my movements. I'd wait for loud moments to stand up. I'd stay still longer than I should. I'd sit through pins and needles in my legs just so I wouldn't make noise. High school made me even more careful. If class ended and everyone was still talking, that was my chance to get up. If the room went quiet, I stayed frozen. During my SAT, I sat there for hours trying not to move. The second time was called, I stood up and my whole spine cracked from top to bottom in one long sound. The proctor came over right away and asked if I was hurt. I said no, but my face was burning and everybody was staring. Even then, my parents brushed it off. My mom said maybe I got it from my grandmother. My dad said I was just built creaky. I wanted to believe them because I didn't have a better answer. Then that spring, we went on a college visit, and that was the moment everything changed. We were packed into this auditorium with a bunch of other students and parents, sitting on hard wooden seats through a long admissions talk. By the end, my hips and knees felt tight, but I kept still the whole time. The second the presentation ended, everyone started getting up, so I stood too. My hip let out this massive pop that bounced off the walls. It was so loud, people actually gasped. The admissions counselor stopped mid-sentence and stared straight at me. A woman behind us said, "Oh my God, is that kid okay?" And everyone near us heard it. I panicked and dropped right back into my seat, which made my knee crack too. I just sat there, red-faced, staring at the floor while people kept looking over. That night in the hotel, my mom finally stopped joking about it. She grabbed her phone and started searching things like loud joint-cracking teenager and joints pop every time I move. I watched her face change while she read. First curious, then worried, then completely pale. She handed the phone to my dad. He barely got halfway through the page before he looked at me in this strange, serious way and said we were calling our doctor the second we got home. That Monday, I was in Dr. Klein's office. He'd known me for years and had heard me crack 100 times, but this was the first time he really checked everything. He had me bend my fingers back, rotate my shoulders, stretch my legs, roll my wrists, turn my neck. Every move came with another pop or snap. He kept raising his eyebrows. Then he asked if I could touch my thumb to my forearm. I did it easily. He asked if I could bend over and put my palms flat on the floor without bending my knees. I could. He sat back down, looked at my parents, and said he wanted me to see a specialist because this sounded like a connective tissue problem. 3 weeks later, I was in a rheumatologist's office doing the longest exam of my life. She tested every joint, checked how far everything moved, wrote notes every few seconds, then asked how often the popping happened. I told her almost every time I moved. She nodded like that answer fit perfectly. Then she put down her clipboard and said I had Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, a connective tissue disorder that made my joints too loose and unstable. That's why they moved farther than they should. That's why they made so much noise. Now my parents are saying I hit it too long. Was I wrong here?